Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and today we'll be talking about Retribution Paladins. I'm not really somebody who is a tank main or a healer main, so I will not pretend to talk about the whole Paladin class. Rather, I will talk about Retribution in name alone. However, one of the coolest things that can be pointed out with Paladin is something that Blizzard sorta did with Shamans as well. In Shadowlands, Blizzard decided to focus on a couple of classes to make sure that there's more class identity rather than spec diversity. So that means that you won't have specs with nearly as many different playstyles, but rather you will have a specific subset of abilities that a certain class is good at. And that class brings certain key abilities no matter what spec they're in. Welcome, the Paladin, the new and I would even say in some cases improved Paladin of Shadowlands. We will be playing the DPS version of Paladin. However, you're not really limited to just DPSing. The amount of toolkits that you bring as a Retribution makes you feel more like a Paladin rather than a simple Ret. Back in vanilla World of Warcraft, the way Blizzard looked at Paladins is you're a class that wants to see others do well. So you bring a variety of buffs, and while you might not be the strongest at tanking, damage, or healing, you try to make other classes look better, and you try to make sure that those other classes can succeed. It kind of does sort of same thing here, except without that whole being kind of bad at tanking, healing, or DPS. As a Paladin, you bring in a couple of different utilities, one of them being auras, which I gotta be honest, they are not the most complicated auras. Right now you have an aura for extra mount movement speed. You're not really going to use this in raids or in dungeons. Another aura is the Retribution aura. As allies fall, you gain wings. You kind of will have this sometimes, but not all that often. So the only two useful auras right now are Devotion aura and Concentration aura. These are the auras that you'll be switching between depending on how many paladins and what your group composition looks like, and also depending on the fight. So far, as a Paladin, it's kind of cool coordinating with another Paladin to figure out who is running which aura. Me being a lower level Paladin, I ran Devotion, while a guildie of mine tanking this dungeon ran Concentration. And now we're providing utility. I provide the percentage damage decrease to my allies, while he provides caster's capability for healers as well as other DPS in order to be able to push out all those heals. And the idea behind it is awesome. The blessings have also been turned up by a hair. You still have Blessing of Freedom to grant allies free movement, Blessing of Protection to protect them from physical abilities, or if you're a tank spec, you can still go for Spell Warding in order to protect them from magic damage. But now Retribution also gains Sacrifice. So you'll sacrifice a portion of your health to make sure an ally survives, and this sacrifice turns off automatically once you fall below a certain health threshold. So as a Retribution Paladin, you can now provide a bubble sack combo like you used to do back in the day. But you can also use it without bubble for regular fights and regular mechanics. You can make sure your healer survives or another DPS survives. And as a Paladin, to be able to finally be able to help out your allies without just standing there and just continuing to heal, just pop a Blessing of Sacrifice on an ally and continue slamming damage. And that, or the idea behind it, I am a huge fan of. Now let's talk a bit about the off-healing capabilities that Rets in particular have. There is a talent currently that gives you the ability to make your Lay of Hands when you use Lay on Hands on an ally, that if you heal them when they're below a certain health threshold, it will reduce the cooldown of that ability by half. So if you're able to save an ally from a tough situation, healing them at emergency notice, you'll be able to use this ability a lot more often. Hell, even off-healing allies can be used in multiple ways. Let's say you're in a situation where you need to heal. Like, damaging is nice, but you need to heal an ally just to survive a certain mechanic. Your Word of Glory is back, and it will start using your Holy Power in order to heal a friend. If survivability is your sole focus, you can start to sacrifice your Holy Power that you generate quite easily in order to off-heal a friend. And all these friendly help utilities that you get as a Retribution Paladin, I think is absolutely fantastic. I'm a huge fan of that playstyle. I know everybody wants to do the most amount of damage, but a Paladin at a core is a class that's there to help allies, to save them from trouble. And having so many different utilities as a Paladin to be able to save allies, I am a massive, massive fan of. It doesn't mean that you have to be using those abilities, you don't have to be sacrificing your holy power to save friends. But if there's ever a situation, now you have the ability. I feel like it's a lot better to have this capability than not having it. At least when it comes to kind of like the role-playish aspect of a Ret, but also when it comes to the gameplay aspects, kind of how those things coincide together. I also want to take a look at the Retribution Paladin talents because there's a lot of interesting choices within the Ret Paladin toolkit. my original Paladin is actually locked out. That because he is a Blood Elf, and they're doing some customization changes to Blood Elves. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the Paladin talents. The first row is simple. I like that they added Imperium Power in the second row. It's kind of like, hey, chance to proc and something passive, 100% proc chance or a proc chance with damage. This row is about the same, but where the rows get interesting are in level 40, 45, and 50 for Shadowlands. And in level 45, you have Divine Purpose, and this is going to be what you do with your Holy Power and how do you manage your Holy Power. You have Divine Purpose. Holy Power abilities have a 50% chance to make your next Holy Power ability free and be 20% more effective. That's cool, but contrast it together with Holy Avenger, and oh boy, 3-minute cooldown. Your Holy Power generation is tripled for 20 seconds. Now, as Paladin, this was, I think, a kind of a modified version of the Holy Pally ability, but essentially it makes you a god. So, going with this ability, you can either go for something more passive with Holy Power management, or just, you know what, I have a cooldown, I'm just going to have insane Holy Power generation. Paladin is all about busting down damage while in wings, so have better control of it. Or, if you want someone to give you a little bit extra burst from time to time, but not like a massive amount of burst, but not a completely passive option, spend your Holy Power into Seraphim, which is on the same row, and a 45-second cooldown, giving you a variety of stats, which will not only make you faster in gameplay with that haste, critical strike is going to be nice, mastery for raw damage, and versatility for survivability, as well as damage. Something like this would actually is a really cool row for Paladins, and I'm a huge fan in terms of the options of how you want to do damage. Then level 45 are going to be, how do you heal others? I talked earlier about the healing hands, on using lay on hands on an ally that's 30% health or less. Cooldown of lay on hands is half, which is an insanely cool ability. Selfless healer is there, but mana management is going to be a bit more of a thing for Paladins in general, not just Red Pally, because your Crusader Strike costs mana. So you're never going to be at 100% mana, and you don't regen mana nearly as easily, so it takes a lot longer, so that's why I don't really like Selfless Healer as much. Justicar's Vengeance on that same row, but I think it's a decent row for healing. Then you have another damaging row at the bottom. How do you want to augment your damage? Two of them play with your wings. One of them is going to be Crusade to make wings a 2-minute cooldown, blasting a bunch of damage, giving you a stack and haze buff, can be good in combination with Holy Avenger. Or Inquisition for something more meager, but something more sustainable. Can be really good together with Seraphim Inquisition, but that becomes a game of balancing buffs. However, still a choice of a buff. A beastly big damage for your Crusade, or Sanctified Wrath to make your Avenging Wrath last longer and give you radiating AoE. So a more heavy-handed option, more of a kind of passive middle-ish option, and more of just direct control option. So at least for Retribution Paladins, while you are more a Paladin rather than Red, and let's be honest, the Red gameplay with this, how many abilities you have, isn't crazy. It is nice that they added Wake of Ashes. A baseline ability only generates the Holy Power, but still better than having to pick it from talents at least. The Red gameplay is pretty, I mean, not super diverse. The things that you bring as a Paladin are insane, with Shield of Righteous to be able to pop yourself into a shield if you need that armor. Hammer Wrath being baseline is super nice as well. You can get a Hammer Wrath ring too, so it's usable while wings are up. But the playstyle for what Red brings isn't too crazy, but the talents can augment your playstyle while you don't get any crazy new abilities. You essentially will play with everything you play currently on Battle for Azeroth. The talents is where it can get kind of interesting and give you some cool choices that can be good in some fights or in others, that give you what you want out of your Paladin. Still, allowing you to emphasize the fact that you have massive damage during wings. However, if you want to go for something more sustained based, you can stoop down to different talents and kind of figure out your build. And I really do like how Blizzard were able to find a way where, first of all, this whole row is the same for all 3 specs of Paladins, but something all Paladins can use in a sense. So it's cool that Retribution has different toolkits with the way that they change the talents for all 3 specs, but the way that it affects threats, I'm a huge fan of. So as we talked about Paladin, the playstyle of the Retribution isn't going to be all that different. You'll have exactly the same abilities and same priority. You'll be building Holy Power and spending it just like you do on live. It's just now the focus and the other things you can do outside of just hammering damage into the boss is what I personally find very exciting. just the other abilities you can do, the utility you can provide to allies, the way that you can be now a playmaker with certain combo of abilities in order to really get someone out of a tough situation, whether you go for that bubble sack inside of a raid, or simply just going for a normal sack in order to make sure the healer can survive. Watching out for allies that maybe might die inside of a raid, swapping into Retribution aura so you can get few more seconds of wings in order to give yourself a moment of burst. And well, that's the parts that I honestly find more exciting than the Retribution Paladin gameplay. These are the things that you might have experienced if you played Prot in the past, where Prot can provide some off healing, Prot can provide Blessing of Sacrifice, so can Holy, so it's just Red kind of catching up to the other specs. The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to the gameplay for Paladin, and this is just for any Paladin, are some of the auras. We don't have a lot of cool auras. We have Devotion, which it doesn't stack, so only one single Paladin is needed in order to get Devotion rolling. And then you have Concentration, and again, only one Paladin is needed for it. The other two, one of them is a movement aura, which is fine, and the other is Retribution aura, where you get wings when an ally dies. I feel like Retribution aura doesn't really play into the Paladin playstyle of, you know, sacrificing themselves to protect their friends. It's rather, hey, let me snipe a free wings as my ally dies. Maybe people will be able to use this to cheese damage for free for Paladins, and you might use it in dungeons, LFR raids, or BGs where everybody's dropping like flies, so you might be able to get a free hit, but I don't see myself using it in, let's say, a raid with the guild that's trying to make sure everybody survives. Again, some cheese potential, but doesn't really feel to be to the Paladin playstyle. But that's something that Blizzard can fix in the future. So far, I think I'm pretty satisfied with Paladin, and if for whatever reason I was going to drop my Rogue for the next expansion, Paladin will definitely be one out of two classes that I would be very interested in checking out when it comes to the next new expansion. So overall, I would actually level this class. I think I'm gonna put it in my type 5, maybe my 6th class that I would level right now, but if for whatever reason Blizzard were to destroy rogues tomorrow, this would definitely be one out of the two that I would actually choose to focus on. I always wanted to play a plate class, and with the fantasy that they're doing for Paladin, basic abilities and utility, I'm a huge fan of that type of playstyle for that class. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts. I'd like to hear what you guys think about Paladin and Shadowlands, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.